asleep in the lab. I woke up on a slab, so I went and did a dab. Waking big on my ass. All I want is cash.
What's going on, guys? Pegasus and the Wiseguys. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Make sure you sub. Make sure you hit the bell. We're breaking down Prankids. This is not my deck profile. This is actually one that I pulled from, I think it was like a top 4 winning one. I believe it was Hanko's list. I could be completely wrong. I wanted to find the one with Pack, but I wasn't. I'll try to put it somewhere in this video. You know, it might be right here. But I wanted to talk specifically about why the deck is doing what it's doing, because I called it a meta call deck, and I wanted to talk about each of the 5 decks that I listed inside of that video. However, this one has been doing better than all of them, which is really, really interesting, because it's like there's talking points that people need to kind of understand as to why it's doing what it's doing. It's very, very interesting, and as you see the list that's on the screen, it just has a lot to break down, to talk about. So if you could bear with me, I'll be talking about it for a little bit, and then also a little bit of background noise, just because I'm in one of my offices in the family business, and I'm literally by a glass window, so that's why you can hear a lot of background noise from traffic and stuff. So pardon that. Now that we got that out of the way, that's enough of me talking. The first thing is the deck itself. I'm just going to go over each of the cards. This is not my list. I forget where I saw it. It's just I had it, and then I had it saved to talk about it later, because I really was impressed by the list, and it had some talking points to it. One Prankids plan, obviously, because the trap card helps you facilitate the link for the Harpy's Feather Duster, Rip Roaring Roller Coaster guy down there. We'll get to him when we get to him. 3 place helps you to get pretty much any Prankids monster that you may or may not have. Pranks for the +1, the drawing a card, as well as just the card, putting a token on the field, putting some resources back. There's just a lot that the deck can do. The double fusion spell, I feel like 3 is too many. I feel like 1 is too few. So I think 2 is the correct number, because you want to see it, but you don't want to see it all the time. People used to put Invocation and some of the other cards in there. You don't need all that. You just need to get to the Prankids themselves, and the Link 1 helps facilitate that. Then you play every Prankid. Every card that says Prankid that's a main deck monster, you play 3 of them. I really don't think it's like even a question. Triple Nibiru and Triple Ash. I do believe this is Hanko Chow's list. I'm like 100% sure, like 99.9. The triple strike and the triple, this is the first real talking point. The triple strike and the triple, there can only be one. You need something to be able to help the deck kind of keep up while also being able to do what it does. The deck doesn't care about there can be only one. And a deck with this kind of grinding and this kind of power level, there can be only one is a really good card to have. It just is what it is with that. The Solemn Strike is just a generically powerful trap card, and it's good going first or second. And I like the Floodgate and the Strike together, because if you draw them together, it can clear a board going second. So saying your opponent won the dice roll, you draw into these cards, you see these cards, 2 of them might be a Solemn Strike, and there could be only one. You set them, you flip the Floodgate over, and you strike whatever can negate it, and then they're screwed, because they can't chain to it unless they have reboot or something. So to make a long story short and a short story long, that part of the deck is really maybe it's not convoluted, but it's the reason why they're playing it. The instant fusion, the Called by the Grave, it's a combo deck. Any combo deck that you're playing right now, until Crossout comes, you have to play these cards, in my opinion. For the most part, until it always fluctuates with, are people playing a lot of hand traps? Then you have to play these cards. Are people not playing as many hand traps? Then you don't have to play these cards. It's really up to you. The triple desires and then the triple talents. It could play prosperity, but then you couldn't play talents. I feel like these are 2 good cards, because Prankids being able to pop off the way that it does off of 1 card, and it not being an easy deck to play, and your opponent really having to figure out where in the world do they even activate monster effects against you, that's already kind of putting them back on their heels, and then the talents is pushing them off of their heels and really hurting them. In my opinion, as you see the side deck, which you can go through really quick. I know I didn't hover over each and every card, but the triple Lancia, the triple Cyclone, the double Alpha, I really like that card in this deck. Pancratops would also be a really good option as well. Triple Solemn, because when you know you're going first, obviously you probably want to put in some more cards to put in some more stops against your opponent. And then the 3 Dark Ruler, and then the Harpy's Feather Duster. And then as far as the extra deck monsters, A lot of it is really, really self-explanatory, but we'll talk about the Prankids cards. Doodle Doo, you have to play 2. It helps you to get a spell or trap. Really, really commonsensical type card. Double of the Link 1. The Link 1 and the Battle Butler have a unique combo where you can basically double red deck your opponent on their turn. Bow Wow Bark is really, really solid. You need it. You really need the Bow Wow Bark because of the stuff on getting resources on their turn, but also because being able to get Prankids cards, not just the monsters. Sometimes you need one, sometimes you need the other. You know what I mean? And then as for the rest of the deck, like the Weather Painter, the Weather Washer, excuse me. Sometimes your opponent has effects that you don't really get. But long story short, now let's get into some talking points. So guys, on part 2, I just wanted to cover some of the talking points I wanted to talk about the deck as to why it's winning. It's really, really obvious that the deck can chain block people. But the very, very first thing that I wanted to talk about is the actual trap card. The trap card, the strike, and the there can be only one. It's really, really unfair when you can put there can be only one against other people, and the deck can still do its thing. Whatever its goal is, whatever it is to grind your opponent. If you can get your grind game going with Prankids and be able to stop them with power traps like Solemn Strike, and there can be only one. That's the very, very, very first thing. But the other thing for me is Prankids is winning simply because it knows how to chain block you, where it's activating a monster effect and then chain blocking with Prankids place, being able to block an opponent from being able to Ash Blossom you at the right time, because everybody's kind of cut down their hand traps a little bit. I really feel like the only hand trap that really even affects this deck like that is Nibiru. Lancia doesn't really matter. Like droplets and stuff like that doesn't really matter. The deck can skill drain you, and you might not be ready for the skill drain because a lot of people don't know. Sometimes siding in back row removal against a deck like Prankids or cards that can completely blow your opponent out of being able to play. That's how you beat Prankids. But a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people, it's very Infernoid-ish. It's that meta call deck where people don't know quite what to do. They know a little bit, just like Subterror. Subterror, you think you have it figured out, and then when they slowly start to snowball you, people may forget Archer and Guru being on the field as a quick effect Book of Moon. There's just little stuff inside of these decks that are just a bit out of the meta that people forget about, and that way they get stunned. I've seen it too many times with Infernoids myself. I'm not a Prankids player, but a lot of my friends, a lot of my teammates, they enjoy playing the deck. And I really enjoy watching the deck just because it's really fascinating. And you cannot be a shitty player and beat anybody with Prankids. I've watched it too many times. Although people do cheese in time, it definitely is something. Next talking point that I wanted to talk about, in my opinion, the hand traps that we are used to, more than what I've already named, they don't matter. Lancia doesn't matter. Ghost Bell may, in a certain scenario, maybe you're adding something back from the grave. Maybe a DD Crow, but unless you're playing like the Tri-Brigade deck, you don't really care like that. And even then, you may be able to play around in some way, shape, or form. You may be able to play through some of those boards. But it really boils down to the deck's ability to grind, the deck's ability to float, mixed with some of the cards that they're playing inside of their deck. They're bombing people with hand traps, and they're bombing people with the trap cards. And then people aren't quite understanding that, hey, you better have something as far as back row removal is concerned. I think the next thing that I wanted to bring up is the absence of Drytron. Drytron being the overwhelming stun deck. It's a combo deck, but it's also a control deck. And where Ruler was on the board everywhere, and Herald of Ultimateness was on the board, and Ben 10 was at 3. The boss monster in that deck, the Ruler or the Ultimateness, and the amount of negates in their hand, you aren't going to get to play. Therefore, a deck like Prankids, it's just throwing a bunch of stuff at a wall and then hoping it sticks. It's not going to stick because the boss monster is too oppressive. Just like Virtual World with VFD and some of these other decks with VFD. VFD is just too damn good. And having a Chuche behind it, your opponent couldn't do anything. And the combo deck needed to be able to do something. And if it couldn't, then the virtual world player that is just even adequate at best was just going to storm that person anyway. That just kind of is what it is. I also think that the ability for other people to have to figure out on the fly what in the world you're doing as far as your deck building within that deck, on top of it being a rogue deck, on top of it being a meta call, which means a really, really powerful rogue deck, all combined, I really feel like that's a nightmare for your opponent to be able to deal with. So guys, this is just me covering the deck. Again, this is one of the deck lists that topped. I really feel like Prankids is something that people are slowly starting to understand. But at the same time, the moment that some of these new archetypes come out, this Despia archetype that just got revealed, Shadal's just got a field spell. All hell's about to break loose again. So it's like you constantly have to adjust. And so some of these things are going to get bumped. This is Greg Farley from the Wiseguys signing out. I appreciate you for tuning in. I'm out. YG baby!